Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, November 11th. As always, I'm your host for Collectibles and Coffee, Edward Nguyen. I do have someone special here with me today, Mason Berry from Card and All Gaming in Louisville, Kentucky. Mason, thank you
Hello,
for
hey guys.
Mason, thank you for joining us. I Mason is one of the people I actually haven't met him, but I did.
Yet.
I've not met you yet. I'm hoping at some
Yet.
point. I'm hoping at some point in the future we will have the pleasure of meeting in person.
For sure. Yeah.
I came across Mason because when I was on Verbank, just browsing the Verbank group on Facebook, I was just browsing one day, and then I saw this post. He had written a post, and the first I think some of among the first words were, "This is a perspective from an LGS owner." So I read
Yep.
it, and then you had posted some videos, and then you had been making some videos on a fairly regular basis regarding Pokemon, regarding kind of the hype, I guess, we're in right now, and
Yes. Riding the wave.
riding the
Yep.
wave. And I think that you put out like pretty regular content, especially relating to just very common things that are happening, especially from your perspective, an LGS owner perspective. That's not something that we see a lot of content for because most LGS owners aren't really putting the stuff out.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of the whole goal behind the channel is just to educate people that maybe don't know how LGSs work, and then kind of give the perspective from an owner, and especially with the unique situation that we're in right now. The my perspective as a store that's struggling through the shutdowns and the restrictions that I got to do. And this opportunity basically to make more money than usual or larger margins than usual. It's kind of like the moral pull between stuff of selling online and maxing out profits versus taking care of my my local people. That's just something I talk about a lot in the videos.
Yeah, so I'll make sure to provide the information to his channel for the people that do want to follow along. Check him out. I definitely recommend people doing so. But before we really get too far into that, let's kind of back it up. We'll definitely touch on your videos a little bit later in the interview. But I guess fundamentally, how did you get your start? What made you want to be an LGS owner? Did you start out by playing Magic, by playing Pokemon, or how do we get to this point?
No, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll try not to take too long to go through it. A millennial like me, I grew up with Pokemon. I opened the original stuff, had it growing up as a kid. I got married, 10 years ago now, and with stepkids who wanted to get into Pokemon, and we played Pokemon for a while, and they played competitively pretty heavily. And then, after the natural phase of getting out of that, and moving on to other things that they wanted to do, I was stuck with all these cards, that had, decent value, and I was like, well, what do I do with these? I could just go, trade into another store, or, I could try to sell them myself. And that's kind of how it grew from selling the stuff that they had, the playable stuff that they had, and then maybe my old collections I had, from my, when I was a kid, and selling that stuff off. And then, I figured out, hey, I could make money doing this. And that's largely how I got my start. It's just buying collections from local people and flipping them on eBay and other places that I could do that with, and then kind of snowballed into that, and that's how it really started out. Just as a little side hustle. It's still a hustle, but just not on the side anymore.
So what's it like the timeline there? Like when did you first start, like as it were?
This is probably for me like heavy buying and selling Pokemon. Probably 8 years ago now. Probably. Uh, I was dabbling and doing stuff before that, but yeah, where I was buying and selling collections. Yeah, probably eight years ago. So
And then when did you open up Cardinal Gaming?
we've been doing it, man, 4 years now. Yeah, over it was June of 16. So yeah, we've been at it for 4 years. Um, Started off in like a little tiny office space. Me and my business partner, he does video games. I do and Magic, and I do Pokemon. Pokemon's just kind of my thing that I know very well. I know video games as well, and we got together and started in a 400 square foot office space with wire rack shelving and all our stuff on it in this little tiny room, and just kind of built from there over the course of the 4 years that we have been. Now we're in a 7,500 square foot store that we do pretty much anything and everything game wise. It's really cool to see where we've come from and then what we are now in just 4 years, relatively short amount of time.
No, that's very cool. So what was like the transition point? Like at what point I guess is the tipping point between, hey, this is a side hustle, just like your average kind of backpack dealer that you see a lot of people who just buy and sell collections
Right.
through.
Yeah.
And so what was the tipping point from that into I'm going to be a professional business, have a store, etc.? Was it just kind of a monetary point? Was it just we're outgrowing, we're getting too big? What was the tipping point for you?
No, yeah. I mean, we have always been, never more than what we can currently manage. And, we started organically. We didn't take any loans out or anything. Basically, when we started was when Zach approached me and my business partner approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm already, I'm already knee deep. May as well jump all the way in." So, but yeah, we always started. We started the store basically with the stuff that was in his garage and the stuff that was in my attic, and we threw it together in an office space, and we just kept it rolling like that. And it was incremental steps getting to the point to where we are now. But you just you just turn and burn. That's all you can do. That's how you start.
So you did mention that you have a business partner.
Yeah.
What was the decision behind that? Like, was there just how did you combine forces, as it were?
No, I mean, I know there's different conflicting thoughts on doing it all yourself. You can only trust yourself. Money. It makes people. Greed is. Things you have to worry about. But having the spur of somebody getting behind me and helping me out, and just another person to bounce ideas off of, is huge when you start and you really don't know what you're doing. And there's just definitely a tug of war between stuff that I want to do and what he wants to do, and what we think is as he thinks is best and what I think is best. So it's in a lot of ways we balance each other out, and it works for us. I know in a lot of situations, it turns sour, and people have bad experiences with that. But so far we've been okay, and it just has been worked out. And we, like I said, we work very well together, I think.
I think that's a big part of it. I know a lot of people who especially in our industry doing just the hobby industry in general, there seems to be just so many conflicting thoughts that especially trying to get like two different people together who generally have different opinions on how to do things is very difficult. Is that something you've really had to deal with, or do you generally are able to work things out, or have you ever been at a point where you have to have something done your way and he has to have something done his way?
There's definitely you pick and choose your battles for sure, but I think as we see more businesses going towards online and more businesses going to, well, you can't just be a card store anymore. You can't just be a Magic store. You can't just be a Pokemon store. You have to be kind of like this all-encompassing, almost like a secondhand store for nerds, basically, where you can actually, when something is slumping, going down, when a couple years back when Nintendo and Super Nintendo games were all the rage, and then they started to dip down. We had to turn and go to focus more on Pokemon and Magic, and then to have that stuff where D&D was catching fire, and then we had D&D stuff that we had gotten into, and we started stocking all this D&D stuff. You kind of have to have all this stuff that you have to, if something's not doing as well, you kind of force the other stuff, or rely on the other stuff more and try to get the other stuff going. So having somebody that has that extra skill set, with Magic that I didn't have, or he does repairs with game consoles, so he has that as well. That really helps us out. That is kind of a unique thing that you don't see in a lot of places. Those kind of skill sets you kind of have to have in order to survive, especially with the year like as it has been. You kind of just have to adapt and keep it rolling however you can.
No, absolutely. I think despite what people seem to think, a lot of people who are LGS owners, it's definitely not an easy business. We just see. I assume
No,
like there's lots.
It is not. It's a lot more to it than what I originally thought, and yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of juggling and stuff that you didn't know that I'd have to be doing that I'm doing now. So there's a lot of that.
And it's one of the industries that has like a very high turnover rate. You see a lot of stores, at least my experience, I've seen a lot of stores go under for what seems like very small reasons, but it's one of those things that a lot of people who do try to get into being an LGS owner, they just, like you mentioned, they don't realize until they really get in the thick of it, and then they realize, oh man, this is something that I never thought I would have had to do when first starting
Right.
out. That
Well, I think it's fun, it's a hobby that you obviously are passionate about, or whatever you're getting into, you're really passionate about it. And then, you just quickly discover that, you know, it is a business that it is a job that you do have to do. So there is other skill sets other than just you're an expert in, you know, magic cards, and I'm going to buy and sell these in a storefront. There's a lot more that goes into it. And like I said, we're a pretty large store. Square foot wise, I'd say we're a medium volume in sales, but we're a large store, 7,500 square feet. That's a lot. Before COVID, we were doing over 100-person tournaments in there. So, and obviously that's not a thing anymore. So you have to really learn to adapt and roll with what life gives you.
so kind of on the topic of that, I guess not necessarily relating to this, but what do you think your most difficult experience of being an owner has been? Like, what's probably the most difficult time or difficult challenge that you've had to deal with over the years?
Well, definitely this year has been rough. I mean, I could go on about that, for hours in itself. But there's, like I said, there's a lot that goes into a business that you don't think about. Like having employees, all the happiness and the sadness that goes along with that, and the as much help they are, they can be burdensome as well. Their issues are your issues, and my issues are their issues because we're trying to work together in a small business environment where they're more than just you know like a store clerk or something like that. They literally help me do everything in the store. So they're kind of like all like mini managers to me. So it's kind of a different situation and different kind of job. uh, but yeah, other than like having to manage employees, I mean, yeah, this year's just been, I mean, it completely destroys this kind of business. Where stores that rely on people coming in and gathering together just can't do that anymore. And it's it's really difficult to sell things that people are supposed to be or used to sitting down and playing in your store, to having to take them home or go somewhere else and almost in a secretive way go and play these games because you can't do it in your store. And when you have even Wizards of the Coast saying, yeah, don't hold tournaments, you can't hold tournaments, you can't hold pre-releases, you can't have that stuff in your store. It's a very restrictive to just the type of stores and the type of business that we run.
No, absolutely. Just for my curiosity, and probably for some people who listen, I know that there are some LGS owners that do listen to this. How many
Yeah,
employees do you
sure.
run? Just kind of,
Well,
like
I just
besides your
lost one
company.
today, so I'm down to seven of us, and then me and Zach. So there's nine of us in total. But yeah.
Okay, so what is kind of the split there? Do you have some amount of just online staff only, some amount of just in-store people that are they're running on the floor, or how do you kind of,
No, yeah. There's definitely different departments that we try to run people through. We have normally two people doing the video game size of stuff, and then we have either one or two people doing the card aspects, and then shipping has been as we've weaned away off in-store sales and running events, we're doing more stuff online. We actually created we split the store in a fifth, took a fifth of the store and made it like a shipping and storage area for online when we were shut down. So, we always have with Zach doing his repairs back there, and then I'm back there doing inventory and planning for events and things like that. And then there's always somebody back there shipping as well. So yeah, we have even more departments than what we had, previous to this year, because of the way we've had to shift our business around and how we've had to adapt to buying and selling, basically with the restrictions that we got. But yeah, I got me and Zach, and then we have two managers that do card stuff and kind of inventory stuff, and then video games can be its own beast to have to handle. So I don't envy him having to do his stuff. But yeah, we have 2 managers under that, and then we have the rest of the employees that just some of them are part time, some of them are full time. But yeah, we have kind of the grunts to do all the clerical stuff.
So how many people are just roughly in your store at any given time? I imagine it's probably like heavy during the weekend.
Yeah, we normally we'll have normally 5 on staff during the day, and then we only work at 1 shift now anyways, but we have enough employees to where if we wanted to have more than an 8-hour day, that we would be able to split them up pretty evenly across that. Right now we have normally 5, and it seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but there's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of back of house and back of inventory stuff that we need to process through anyway, so it's fine.
Good to know. That's fair enough. Let's move on a little bit. Let's kind of start talking about some of the Pokemon stuff, because obviously you said that's kind of how you got your start. That's your knowledge. So this is really the ball's in your court now. So first off, anyone who does listen to this, I do encourage you to go on and listen to us videos, take a look at them just to provide some context. But one of the most recent videos, I've slowly been going through your videos as I was preparing to do this. One of your most recent ones was when you had kind of broke down the 3 pillars, I guess, of the Pokemon community now: collectors, players, and investors. And I think one of the things that you mentioned was that investors have really started to become a bigger and bigger part in terms of where they fit into the community now compared to before. And that's obviously really taken off in the past few months as the price of Pokemon have just exploded on everything. Singles, sealed, what have you. If it's Pokemon, it's just gone up.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I'm sorry, did you have a question you wanted to follow up that with?
No. Like this is kind of in your wheelhouse now. So
okay. I mean, I'm just gonna run then. So Pokemon is very unique in that as a collectible card game, there's a lot more collecting than there is playing. So players certainly do have their spot, but Pokemon has, and you see it with the walk-ins in my store, people just want to collect the cards. And they have their favorite Pokemon they want to collect. They want all the cards that I have this, or they'll have their different generations that they collect in. Sometimes it's just all the old base set stuff. They don't want anything to do with the new stuff, or there's spots in Pokemon's history where there's kind of like unique cards that are kind of different, or sets that are really more rare because they printed so under what normally they've been printing at. And then you got people that like the pretty shiny stuff from today. So there's always been collectors as the mass of the market, and players kind of have always been kind of like, well, give us something to play with because there's all these pretty cards, but they don't play very well. And then the investors have just come in, and even in the past 2 months, really just kind of just taken everything over to and shot the prices up way higher than what they used to be, with even like Pokemon evolutions from the set, with the Charizard that they're chasing in there, a set that's the most printed set in all of Pokemon. They printed that, I don't even know how many more times than any other set. They probably are still printing it, heck, for all I know, but and sitting on pallets of it. But it's just insane that the idea that people that want to come into this hobby for the money of it, are pushing all these prices to what they are. It's really, and I talked about this in one of my other videos, where when you talk about the higher end of any, I guess, collectible, where you have graded things, where PSA is at, you see these crazy skyrocketing prices for like base set first edition Charizards and just all these other things that are very niche and very special. As if the sealed product that you can get that in is still super cheap, but the graded price for it is way, way up there, there's going to be people that want to come into the market and close that gap, and even come in and buy singles at that price. If they can make $50, $100 by getting it graded and flipping that, they're going to. That's just, that's human nature, and people that want to invest in the hobby, or profiteer, however you want to call it, whatever you want to say. But that's just always going to be a place, as long as there's money to be made, there's going to be people that come up and want to take advantage of that. And that's where investors have really kind of just ravaged the entire, even, standard Pokemon. And I say in one of my videos, I don't have the last year of Pokemon. I have no backstock, and my distributors have no backstock for all that stuff. You're talking a year's worth of printing of Pokemon, and there's no extra anywhere to be seen. It's just unprecedented. I mean, I can't think of any card game that has had an issue where you've had a year's worth of cards just evaporate from the market. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty shocking, especially because I know in the kind of prior to this year, before everything took off, obviously, usually we had product solidly in stock for, it felt like 18 months or so was kind of the timeline, kind of the life of a set, as it were, before it really became unavailable. Usually you kind of have a, hey, here's the last call, this is from your distributor, this is last call, we're kind of getting down to the bottom of the barrel, and then once we're sold out here, we're done. And usually, again, like I said,
Right.
18 months felt like the timeline, but as you mentioned, that timeline is getting real short on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking about, like I said, evolutions. My distributors were begging us to buy that at the beginning of summer. They wanted to get rid of it. They had so much of it, so much surplus of it, and then now here they are. Box is still $450. It's incredible.
And especially Evolutions was that box that every store had in stock at retail or well below retail, right? Because retail is $144,
absolutely.
But like you'd be lucky to get away selling it for like $100, just because everyone had it in stock. So I guess a lot of what I talk about on this channel is kind of the financial side of this. I know that there's a lot of people who do have deep pockets. That's kind of the nature of investors. Right? Generally, people with deep pockets, generally people who are looking for a place to park their money. What's your take on the market? This is something that, I know what your answer is because I've seen some of your videos, but what is kind of your take on the market right now? Do you still see room for it to grow? Are we in a bubble? What is kind of, how do you interpret all this?
Well, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint exactly, what's going to win and stay steady or grow and what's not. I mean, that's the age-old question. That's why investors are investing and not just, buying to hold, right? So I think base set has been way cheap for far too long, especially first edition stuff. First edition stuff in general. It's just, it's so much more rare than just unlimited stuff. You just don't see it. It's just not something that walks in my door, or you see in collections ever. First edition stuff has always had this kind of upper echelon. Hey, this is the best of the best, right? But I think it's finally kind of gotten to the point where, this is a big deal. This is the definitive card to buy if you're going to collect this particular card, is the first edition one. And I think those prices are actually probably, other than Charizard, because it's just to be exponentially more than anything else. It's just kind of silly, but I understand the appeal because it was like, it is Pokemon's Black Lotus. I mean, it just is. It's, the base set Charizard is our Black Lotus, but I think base set probably has some more room to grow for first edition stuff. All the old WotC era stuff, which is the first couple years of printing of Pokemon. I think all that stuff is really starting to finally get appreciated to the point that it is, and it's finally, I think, maturing like it should be, and probably where it should have been for a long time. Because I was selling base set unlimited Charizards for 45, 50, $55 beginning of the year, and then now they're finally, over 100, like, someplace, depending on the grade, $200 and, upwards of that. So, it's, I think it's finally probably that is where it's at. But yes, the run that Standard is doing is just, I don't think any product should be, twice the amount of what it, the same set a year ago would have been, on the open market. And like I said, especially with Vivid Voltage, it's far and away, it's just too much. It's even with the demand, obviously as it is, the prices are just, I mean, technically the set hasn't even released for another It doesn't release for another 2 days. It's sold out everywhere. And I was selling boxes, you know, almost several an hour up to when I ran out, for $150 a box. And that's insane. That's just a crazy. I would never have dreamt that this would be a thing. Even in the height of Pokemon's the height of popularity, this shouldn't be a thing. I don't think so. It's just, yeah, I don't want to say it's manipulation. Obviously, it's genuine demand. It's not just people just buying it out. I think there's genuine demand, and people genuinely do want to get into maybe collecting and holding on to some stuff. But I just think standard is Pokemon's eventually going to print into oblivion, and then it's all going to be okay, and then there'll be probably pallets of this stuff sitting around in warehouses because they printed too much after this all goes and dies back down. But I do think base set and Watts era stuff is probably where it should be now. I mean, you're talking about over 20-year-old cards, and those in good shape should be and have value. So I think that's probably where it should be.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because normally when we think about just standard imprint booster boxes, for the longest time, haven't seen a booster box at anywhere close to MSRP. MSRP is $399 times 36, right? $143.60 some odd cents, I think. That's MSRP. Now we have boxes above MSRP, whereas for as long as I can remember, just your standard imprint boxes. The internet has made them so much more accessible, so a lot of stores do have to compete with online. But for a long time, it just felt like your standard store would probably be selling boxes $100 or so. So probably if you include tax, probably 110, 120, depending on where you go. And now we're seeing boxes, like you mentioned, sell out at 150 before the set even releases.
Right. I mean, you could go on, sets previous to this and find, if you want to buy it by the case, $91, $92 a box, if you buy whole cases of Pokemon. And and it was funny. I think I mentioned this in a couple of my videos. A guy was selling a case, cases of Vivid Voltage for $520, $540 a box. And that's like $86 a box. I'm like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? They're over $130 right now. Why would you do this? And of course, he's sold them all out. And I wish I would have bought them because now I don't have any. But I just crazy. Those people that get into this or buy because they have a business license or get in or maybe do sports cards or whatever. They pick up a Pokemon and they just flip them just to make if they make $500 off of slapping a label on some cases, they're happy. But yeah, it's just, even those people, he eventually did raise his price too. So a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So that's people are going to chase money, whenever they can, even if they're in it for the quick buck.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that I think just in the past few months, especially, it just seems like the dynamic of Pokemon has just shifted so rapidly. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to tell what happened first, right? It's hard to say if, right, did things get expensive as a result of just demand going up, or is it just demand has just shot up that much that it made things expensive, right? It's really hard to tell, especially because it's happening on such a short timeline, right? Because like you mentioned, if we kind of rewind back to even just August, right? A lot of these things were a fraction of the price they are back then, right? And even in August,
and even then, like we were seeing prices gradually rise for some of this higher rarity stuff from even from sets up to a year old, and maybe even a little older. Prices were maturing, and I think a lot of hobbies saw that kind of influx of people being bored and maybe not going out to the movies and going out to spend money or concerts that they'd be spending this money on otherwise. They're just dumping into nostalgia and putting money into that kind of stuff they used to. So, and then we did see a surge, and I was actually, when I started thinking about making a channel and talk about this stuff, I was going to talk about the singles prices and how the singles were going up to how they are. But then obviously when the investability with Dumb Money and Logan Paul and all that came in, that just propelled it over the edge, and it's just already through something that was already probably teetering out of control. Just it's just exploded.
So without looking at this from a business perspective, what is your take on investing in Pokemon? Do you think it is a sound investment? Do you think the people who are doing this, are they making sound decisions with their money, or are they better off putting in, like, the stock market, putting in bonds, putting it in something else? What is your personal take on investing in Pokemon?
No, yeah, I mean, you have those guys out there that go and buy, reserve list, magic and stuff like that. Then, as the market has trended, they do probably better than they would if they put it in, some sort of fund or something like that. So, yeah, I think collectibles are a genuine source, or a place to put money into if you know what you're doing and you know what to buy. But I think people are just grabbing whatever they can, get their hands on, and that's just in any sort of market, in any sort of collectible, in any sort of investing. That's not a smart way to do it, right? I mean, it's just not. Everything doesn't appreciate in value, and even if it was in the short term, long term, you would maybe eventually, buying. I'm going to pick up a set of Pokemon. Guardians Rising, that was overprinted and is, you know, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people going back and wanting, cards and singles out of Guardians Rising. Maybe, I don't know, but chances are, if you bought that at the hype that it is right now, long term, would that be better than putting it off in, a safer, more traditional investment? Probably not. But what do I know? I'm just a guy that sells cardboard. you know, I'm not an investor. I did not start the store to invest, so your guess is as good as mine, unfortunately, on that. It's not something that I was parking my money into, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just riding the wave and just enjoying it. Maybe I mean, better than I'm sure people that bought into reserve list, and I'm sure they're that profited off of that.
Yeah, no, I think it is kind of a different animal. Reserve lists, as clearly as you know, but for the people who don't, reserve lists is that
Right.
essentially guarantee for Magic cards within a certain era, within a certain time printing, that they would not go back and reprint these cards, or they would not reprint them in the same form. So there's a huge scale in them. There's a lot of crap on the reserve list that realistically no one would care if they got reprinted, all the way
Right.
up to your dual lands, to your Power 9, the real iconic cards that have just slowly climbed in value. Pokemon is a little bit different, obviously, because Pokemon technically has no reserve lists, but we can
No.
view,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, we can view WotC era cards effectively as reserve lists, right? Nintendo really can't go back and reprint the base set cards through Skyridge.
Right. I mean, Evolutions was kind of like, if you want to say, like a base set four kind of a thing, where it wasn't the exact same cards, but it looked very similar. Uh, but I mean, I think things like first editions, yeah, that's probably a good place if you want to park money into Pokemon. First edition stuff, WotC era stuff, that's going to be where it's at. Anything now, it's printed so much more than what all that old stuff was, and a sealed product, especially, sealed product turns into singles, but singles can't turn into sealed. So obviously, people that are sitting on these first edition, like jungle boxes. I just sold one of those, and it's already gone up in price. But stuff like that you can't control, and there's only going to be less and less of that. And as people bless boxes and try to open these stuff up to get the PSA 9s and 10s out of those boxes, all that kind of stuff is just going to go up in price. So I think if you want to really buy something to sit on and have it be a really, really safe bet, WotC era first ed, sealed product is probably your absolute safest bet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually going to kind of bring that into the conversation here. But one of your videos, you did kind of go through the conversation and process of you selling your first edition Jungle Box.
Yeah.
So do you kind of want to just rehash that, just kind of your steps and what you do? Because I'm sure that's a pretty interesting story, right? A first edition Jungle Box isn't something you really see nowadays, right?
No, I mean it's nothing like I've ever had in my store before, and it just so happened to be, at the time. Yeah, I'll run through it real quick. This is probably close to a month ago now. A gentleman came in with a Jungle First Edition box, and said he had it from, when his kid was younger, and he was going off to school or to college, or his son was, and he wanted the money for it. So, and he saw that Pokemon was getting hyped up, so now's the best time to sell, right? So I paid what I felt was pretty aggressive at the time, for what the current market was. And then I was pretty much, as soon as I bought it, the prices and the investors' effect on the market. I'm talking like from the extent from like I bought it on a Tuesday, and then on that Friday things were just going crazy. Like everything was just popping off. So I saw prices rise from $12,000 to $20,000, and where we had the lowest listed one on eBay at $25,000. And so ultimately, we did end up selling it locally to somebody that did want to buy locally, and for not as much as what it would have went on eBay. But there's just so much more complications with doing high dollar sales and stuff. And a lot of people, they do meet in person, or they'll what's a $800 plane ticket when you're making $30,000, for something like that, where you do these in person deals. But yeah, just being able to deal with that locally, and save on all the fees and the shipping and all the hassles and the headaches and the potential risk involved in doing all that. We ended up letting it go for a little less than what maybe the current market was actually doing. But at the end of the day, we were both happy. And like I said, I was into it pretty good, unbeknownst, and not on purpose, but just for what the market was doing currently at the time. So, but yeah, we ended up being very happy with what we ended up getting out of it.
So that's kind of the flip side of being a business, right? You don't really have you can't afford the luxury of holding on to it, because
right, exactly.
It's hard to say. Obviously, you kind of look at back. It's like, well, if we held on to it for another, I think you made this video like 2 weeks ago or something, right? Obviously,
right,
if you held on to it for another 2 weeks, maybe you can squeeze an extra few $1,000s out of it. But obviously, as a business, you and I both know we don't have this luxury. A lot of things that we buy, we come through, we just ultimately have to think about an exit plan. And obviously,
right,
something that's kind of high dollar, like a first edition Jungle Box. As soon as you buy it, it doesn't matter if you have the funds, how much it is, you have to be thinking, at some point, I do need to sell this, right? Like,
right.
You can't just sit on it forever.
Right. I mean, you have to worry about turning over that money that you have into that, and reinvesting, and keeping the ball rolling with that kind of capital. So you have to free it up eventually. You can't just sit on stuff. And for a while we were doing that, and hoarding away like Hidden Fate stuff, and keeping all these Evolutions booster boxes, which, hey, got lucky on those. We bought for a regular price, and now they're, like I said, $450. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, why park that money into sitting on something and having it be like a museum piece, which is what we talked about maybe doing with it, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're not a museum, you're a store, and you want to sell and keep that money rolling and keep it flowing and keep it freed up so you can buy and invest into the next thing that walks in the door.
Yeah, I think fundamentally that's really what's different between investors and businesses like us, because we don't necessarily have that luxury.
Right.
I do know that I have some things I do hold on to. Like one of the things I'd mentioned, I bought this a few weeks ago, so the price was definitely good on it. It's an 8. Yeah, it's an 8. It's unlimited. It's nothing super exciting, but it just feels like this is one of the things that I got into it for a right price. I don't mind holding on to it, mainly because I have the luxury of not having employees, of not needing to turn over things as quickly. But I imagine most stores, probably, if they did buy this, it would be something that they want to turn over pretty quick, because...
Yes, I personally hate having graded stuff in the store. It sits forever. You almost always have to go and find a buyer, like seek out a buyer, instead of having them walk into your doors. Very few people go into a game store going, oh, I want to buy all their slab stuff. It's just not a thing that happens. So yeah, it's something like that. Awesome piece if you personally want to hold on to it, and obviously if you have a smaller operation, or if you're into it pretty good, of course, yeah, sit on it, because something like that, the sky's the limit on what they'll eventually be, or what the potential return on that could be. But yeah, if I had that walk into my door, I would probably, I don't want to say I would turn it away. I would definitely shoot them an offer, but they may not like it just because of the headaches that go along with having to sell such a high ticket, high value item like that.
Right. Yeah. Like once you kind of get past the point of selling $150 booster boxes and $20 singles, things become exponentially more difficult to deal with. The fees become much higher on eBay. You're losing a lot more money just upfront to your third party, to eBay, TCG Player, wherever have you sell on. Security becomes obviously an issue with trying to ship it and trying to ship it securely.
Yeah.
No one wants their $25,000 first edition Jungle Box getting crushed in the mail. If any sort of
exactly
there, that would be a nightmare, because that's not something that's easily replaceable. Mainly because even if it's insured, $25,000 back isn't necessarily going to guarantee you that you're going to buy another box. Because how often do we see first edition Jungle Boxes on the market nowadays? So
yeah, you see more of them opened on YouTube than you do on eBay now. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's like one of the really interesting phenomena. It really feels like it's kind of taken off during this pandemic. We see a lot more people cracking a product for YouTube on streams, because realistically, it's one of those things that's like it's an easy way to get clicks, right? Like a lot of people just, well, I'm not gonna buy a box myself. I'd rather just watch a store open 2,000 packs or or what have you.
No, yeah, there's a lot of that goes out. I mean, it's you living vicariously through those means, and it does build interest up. And I'm ultimately thankful for all those people that get people interested and rise the prices up even more. But not that it needs any more stoking. But yeah, normally that kind of opening videos and stuff like that do ultimately help businesses out. So I do appreciate that in a normal sense, and in a normal year, I would appreciate it. Yeah.
So kind of shifting away from that, for you personally and for your business, what is your prospect? What's kind of your outlook for the remainder of 2020? We have 2 months left, the busiest time of the year. Black Friday is around the corner, and then obviously we're kind of right in the thick of holiday season at that point. So, what's your outlook like for the rest of the year?
Well, I wish I could say that it would be to sell a bunch of Pokemon, but I just I don't have any Pokemon to sell, unfortunately. We're going to see a lot of more traditional stuff, I think, move, during the holidays. A lot of the standard stuff that you would see people want to get into. Being a hobby store that does video games and card games and all this other stuff, where normally people would be grabbing up things for themselves, it's kind of more like an entry point typically. So you'll see a lot of more consoles and stuff like that kind of moving into the market. You're going to sell a lot more of your Super Mario Brothers 3s than you are your $100 NES games, for example. So a lot of the traditional stuff that's been honestly sitting for most of the year is hopefully going to be moving now. So maybe some stuff, if you want to talk about trading card wise, I'm still sitting on those trainer toolkits. Maybe I'll sell some trainer toolkits during all this, or maybe some more starter decks. I don't know. But yeah, as far as big ticket items, I think those take a back seat for the next couple months, maybe.
Yeah, I think the holiday season really is such a big game changer for stores, especially for retail operations like you and I, where so much of what we do, it feels like it really kind of boils down into this like 6-week period, give or take, from starting from probably now next week into probably basically until Christmas, when people are just buying. Usually most stores do kind of count on that huge boon in sales to really carry them through. I don't know how it was for you, but I assume if we kind of follow general trends, October is kind of a rough month for sales, mainly because there's no real product releases. It's kind of in that weird transition stage where people aren't really doing summer things anymore. People aren't really spending as much money. And then prior to the holiday, people usually have to start thinking about, we need to start saving up money and putting off sales. So,
no, yeah, October, outside of selling a Jungle First Edition box, it was very slow, especially in the, like I said, the more traditional like controllers and stuff like that, and you know uh, sleeves and deck boxes and play mats and stuff. Magic has been very stagnant. Uh, Commander Legends will hopefully help with that. And I think people are sleeping on Commander Legends. Honestly, I think it's going to be a great little bump there for Magic. I'm really excited about that kind of product. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll see stuff that, like I said, have been sitting on our shelves. We kind of have to buy with the rest of the stuff, our collections, to get the good stuff. You got to kind of buy all the the more staple stuff. So hopefully we'll see all that kind of stuff move.
Yeah, I think Commander Legends. I think Commander Legends is going to be something that does well for Magic. I've mentioned it a few times in the past. It seems like
Yes, I think I did watch your video on it too. I think I did.
yeah, I think it really hits that spot that really draws Magic players right now, because without people going on playing competitive Magic, people really are turning to home games for EDH, playing Magic via webcam. That's really something it seems like it's picked up. So Commander Legends, I think, is going to be kind of a good boon for Magic, because I think Magic's kind of needed, because Zendikar Rising, it felt like Zendikar Rising was going to be good, but I don't know about you, but on my end, it seemed like Zendikar Rising fell apart pretty fast.
Yeah, outside of like the release weekend, yeah, it was pretty stale. And it sucks because if people were playing, this year would have been amazing for Magic. I think we had a lot of great products, like with Jumpstart and stuff like that. That would have done amazing if you could do it in store. But yeah, all this stuff, it just sucks because you kind of just are left sitting here, wondering, how much better would my year have been? How many more hundreds of thousands of dollars could I probably possibly made if I had people coming in my store? Magic's doing their part, Pokemon's doing their part. It's just the climate that we're in is just very restrictive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with what we have kind of this year, kind of what we've learned regarding the markets, how much the market has changed, what do you think your goals are business wise going into 2021?
Well, I mean, you kind of have to not assume that COVID's just going to go away and kind of just, fizzle out and we're all going to go back normal, start January 1st, right? I mean, that's not going to be a realistic thing. So you kind of really have to get into the groove of where we've been moving towards online, kind of, sticking to the strengths of doing stuff like that, and maybe even, buying and selling with that in mind. Whereas, unfortunately, with stuff like, if you buy in collections and stuff like that, you think about, yeah, these high ticket stuff, I can move very quickly. These $20+ cards I can move very, very fast. But you kind of have to probably find a way to sell like the $2 and the $1 and the 50-cent rares that you probably haven't been doing. So we're thinking about doing stuff like big bulk lots, big random lots, grab bags, that kind of stuff. Those sorts of things that kind of keep that product from just sitting there. And it is 50 cents and $1 here or there, but eventually after months and months and months of that building up, that's a huge amount of money that's sitting there, and stuff that you really can't move otherwise. So that's the kind of stuff that we're thinking about. Stuff like like I said, just like blind bags and stuff like that. Just kind of maybe that we can maybe throw a chase and make our own little booster packs kind of deals. That's kind of things that we're thinking about. Just try to move the more slower moving stuff, and the stuff that if somebody walks in and sees it and goes ooh, and then they want to grab it, but with the lack of walk-in traffic, that kind of stuff, like I said, it just builds up. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Obviously, we're hoping for growth, but with the growth, you want to be able to really maximize the money where you can, and kind of flip stuff and figure out a way to sell stuff that you maybe didn't otherwise, because like I said, you don't know how long this is going to be going on. You don't know how much longer we're going to have to not have in-store play and the type of restrictions that we have. So that's kind of stuff we're looking at. We're looking around and saying like, all right, what else can we make money off of? Let's see.
Yeah, I think like this year has really been kind of a wake up call for a lot of stores on multiple angles, right? Because I think a lot of stores, when they've had to kind of had more time, I know there are a fair amount of stores out there that basically just shut down. They've basically moved to online only, once they kind
Yeah.
of had the realization that there's really no point in keeping our doors open if walk-in traffic is just non-existent anymore. Obviously, that doesn't seem to be your case. You seem to be one of the more fortunate stores, but there are a lot of stores I
Yes,
know that
luckily.
a lot of stores that, especially stores that are in malls, for example, those stores really take a huge beating this year, just because.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that were in malls, and man, some of them still can't be opened because of the restrictions that they got going on in their states. So yeah, it's just it's a death sentence. It really, for a lot of stores out there that we will probably never see return, or at least not to to in-store traffic. Where walk-ins are a thing. A lot of stuff moving to online. Or scaling back from what they are used to. And I was gonna touch on this too. I think I did a little bit, but these one-dimensional stores where you have a card store or a comic book store or a video game store. Those kind of days are kind of gone, to where you have to have other revenue streams. You have to have other things to rely on, because you don't know you don't know when a pandemic could break out and you can't run in tournaments, in store tournaments anymore. You know, uh, Kind of just gotta. You can't put all your eggs in a basket anymore and just say, "This is what I know. This is what I'm doing now." It's not a thing that is going to work anymore.
Yeah, it feels like this year has definitely been a real wake up call for a lot of probably a lot of retail businesses that haven't really had to deal with probably down years. Because I think a theoretical someone in your position who's been open for 4 years, realistically, the past 4 years for the hobby industry have basically been as good as ever. It feels like everything is just
Yep.
getting more expensive. Sales have been
Yep.
good. The economy has been just constant upturn the past 4 years, even 8 years, right? Basically for all of from 2010 up until the end of 2019, every year was looking better than the last. So, and this is probably the real first down year that people have had to deal with. And I think a lot of stores, like you mentioned, one-dimensional stores, just absolutely not ready to deal with kind of the trauma that came with the pandemic. Kind of looking at what can happen if people just aren't walking into my store anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's just not something that we're used to experiencing. It's very foreign. Like I said, we are a large square foot store because we're used to running all these events. Even after all this it's over and done with, we're still looking at having less tables than we started out with. We might go down to having only room for 30 to 40 people. There's just using up that much real estate and that much of our floor space dedicated to tables that sit empty for most of the day, and unless it's on the weekends, it's not logical to do anymore, and we're really we're realizing that. So I think about a store that maybe has you know less floor space and less products to have to deal with. Maybe if they got rid of some tables, we're able to bring more stuff in that could diversify them more. I think is something that a lot of hobby stores, comic book shops, other stuff, you really have to start thinking about, because you know um, it could just all change. In just a year's time, it can really just like that be a completely different ball game.
Yeah, and especially I think, like you had mentioned, we really don't know what it looks like. It's not like we're going to transition to January 1st and everything's going to be okay again. We're
Yeah,
even if things start looking okay, like you said, we're probably still a long ways away. A place like you going from 100 plus seats, now you have to start thinking about 30 to 40, maybe the norm, until people start getting comfortable and really starting to fill the seats again. Then you could start looking at 50 to 60. But regardless of what happens, getting back to 2019 is probably months and months and months away at this point.
yeah, and like I said, we'll probably never go back to having 100 plus people. It's just we've moved too far now into having that kind of product and the luxury of the space that it freed up to really go back. I'm being real honest. I mean, it's not as appealing to a store to be have that much space dedicated to that few usage. It doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think those are all very valid points. So I do have one last question. It's not an outline.
Mm.
I always like to throw this. I
Oh,
always like
okay,
to
cool. I'm
always like
ready.
to throw this at people. Okay, so from a personal perspective, if I gave you $100,000 and I
Mm.
said you have to invest this however you want, but you do not see whatever your investment is for 5 years,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So personal. So this is money I'm giving to you, right? So
Hmm.
you can't say I'm gonna pay off business debt. I'm gonna
Okay. Okay.
like buy a new store or something. So something that you would spend $100,000 on.
Man, and I can't look at it. I can't even enjoy it for 5 years.
You can do whatever you want, but you can't get the money back. You can't say,
Oh,
oh,
okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
you can't cash out. You don't see the returns for 5 years.
Man. Man. I don't know. Whew. Probably. I mean, it'd probably be like it'd probably be old WotC Pokemon. Probably, I'd just buy up, a couple of slabs. Buy a nice safe and buy a couple of 100 slabs of some stuff that I think is cool, and just lock it away and let it sit. That's probably. I mean, that's probably the only thing that I would really want to do anything with, and I don't. It's really weird. I don't have this Arcanine is the only Pokemon product I have in my house. This is it. Like this is all I got, other than like video games and stuff. But yeah, I everything else is at the shop. So I really don't have stuff that I like collect or like have that is business related, that is not part of the business. So it'd probably have to be stuff that I would want to put money in to invest. So it probably would be good old classic old Pokemon.
That's a very fair question. It's always fun to ask this question to people because people look
Oh, I
at
love
this
it.
from
That's great.
people always think about it from a different angle because I know it seems like you kind of hinted at this with your answer, but for people like you and myself, we don't really have personal assets because most of the assets are generally part of the business. Like,
Yeah, kind of got absorbed into it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't really own personal cards anymore. Everything I have is just something that's inventoried for business reasons and has to be part of the business as opposed to what I own. And
Yeah, I mean, some people are like that. Some people aren't. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people have, or how many stores have collections that they're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna. This part is for me, and then this is for the business. It's kind of weird to watch some other people how they operate. But yeah, I've never. I had my stuff from when I was a kid, and then when my kids had, their Pokemon, they had their stuff. But yeah, I really don't have like cards or anything that I collect, Pokemon wise.
do you collect anything? This is just kind of a curiosity looking at the
Uh,
human side of you versus.
Man, I mean, man, when you run a business like I do, I just really don't have time to really like go out and like seek stuff. I really don't. I don't really have anything that I collect. I mean, my business is what I'm collecting, I guess. The equity in there, and the just the memories and the stuff that I do genuinely enjoy about it is basically what I'm collecting, I guess.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a pretty good answer. So I think just kind of perspective. I think a lot of some of the answers that I've gone to this. I've interviewed someone who deals extensively in magic art, so original magic
Yeah.
art.
Okay. Yeah.
So his answer was that he would try and find a way to create a gathering for some artists who are getting pretty old because, as morbid as it sounds, if you're in the magic market, artist signatures for magic artists who are deceased have
Yeah.
gone up quite a bit in value. Christopher Rush, right? I know. I actually recently saw someone had a Christopher Rush signed Mewtwo from, I think it was a WotC era.
Really?
Yes, those are a pretty penny because I think he did exactly one Pokemon card. And
Really?
yes.
I'll have to look that up. I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
But
so if you type in Christopher Rush Mewtwo, he did one card for Pokemon, and this was obviously during WotC time because he did Magic, so that kind of some overlap there.
Right.
But the Mewtwo is signed
That's
by
wild,
him. Yeah,
man.
the Mewtwo
Okay.
is signed by him, so that came up for sale recently, which was pretty interesting.
No, I love that answer though. That's a cool answer. I like I said, growing up, I didn't do anything with Magic, and I do appreciate Magic. And the one thing I really do appreciate with Magic is the art on the cards, and just the absolutely stunning pieces that people create to be shrunken down and put on a little card. It's
Right,
crazy.
right, and it's so different for Pokemon because Pokemon they don't allow this, right? Obviously, because Pokemon owns all
No,
art
yes,
for all the cards,
right.
so you'll
Yep,
never
yep.
find a original piece of Pokemon art anywhere because it's all owned by Pokemon. Pokemon owns the
Right.
rights to it. The artists, I think, they're just compensated fairly, and then that's kind of that versus
No, yeah, yeah.
versus Magic. For people who did listen to the interview, Magic, the artists are allowed to create their own originals, their own sketches, wherever, and then whatever they make, they're allowed to sell. As additional.
No, yeah.
bonus
I
too,
mean,
so.
there is some beautiful Pokemon art out there, and it's kind of sad, like you said, that that is the only way we'll ever have it is in that tiny little square.
Yeah, Yeah, I think someone else's answer was I think they said something along the lines of whatever $100,000 will buy in a Charizard. So probably like you're looking at like a BGS, probably like 8, right? Probably a
Uh, yeah, probably. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if that's the safest bet, if you want to put your money in park it, I guess, and you want in 1-to-1 thing, I guess, yeah, the Charizard is going to be where it's at.
Yeah, I think that was his answer. Other than that, kind of like fairly standard answers. I think some people said like reserve list was how they would park it. So kind of just good.
Has anybody ever asked you, like, what have you ever said what you would do with it?
So $100,000 for me if I couldn't see it. So I actually do. I do have some personal vices that I do like to collect. So my
Okay.
$100,000 at this time, probably a bottle of scotch. They're a Macallan 50. One, I'm a scotch drinker, but if I couldn't see it for 5 years, a bottle of Macallan 50 currently retails for about $55,000. It is a
Okay.
very rare bottle, but that's something that would go up over time almost assuredly because there's such a small run, right? Because a 50-year-old bottle of scotch means that they literally had a bottle sealed that aged the scotch for 50 years, right? And that's
Yeah,
not
I
something
mean that's you're talking like sealed product there. That's like it's never gonna go away.
yeah, so that's something that just that appreciates very well over time. I do I do like watches, so
Oh, okay.
buying high
Yeah.
end watches would be something that is also a safe investment. And at the end of 5 years, if I did have to keep it for myself, I'm not really out anything because I would just own the watch and wear it anyways. But
Yeah,
most
for
watches
sure.
are solid portfolios.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think
Okay.
if
Okay.
yeah, those were two kind of like more personal angles. But I think Pokemon right now is if I had $100,000 right now, it would probably be I'd probably be looking at a few slabs. I probably wouldn't be looking at one slab. I'd probably be looking at slabs in the $20,000 to $30,000 range.
No, yeah, I would definitely, you know, spread it out across. If I'm just gonna have, I'm not gonna have just one thing slabbed. That's silly. I don't want to have a whole, a whole mess of them. Like I
Right.
said, a whole safe full of them.
Yeah. So I think that probably like you probably find like a decent set, like a full set of something for that
Yeah,
price.
sure.
Like so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
definitely.
that's probably the place to be. So with that, that'll kind of wrap up our interview today. Mason, I do thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have people on. Just have people that really provide their different perspectives, and especially with store owners, it's such a wide range of experiences, really, because it comes down to where you are geographically. Obviously, you're in Louisville, Kentucky, so your experience can be very different than my experience. I've had owners
Yeah,
from
of course.
Florida, Pennsylvania, and everyone really has just such a mixed range. So, thank
Yeah,
you
it's
again.
it's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and chatting with me. I loved it. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Edwin13. You can find the social media sites for Vermilion on the right of the screen. I'll get Mason's information. You can definitely reach out to him. Mason, what is the name of your YouTube channel again?
It's
So,
just the name of the business, Cardinal Gaming. So yeah, look us out on there. And then of course we have our website that we're doing everything in through now, cardinalgaming.com. Video games, all that stuff, even is all on the website too. So and all that stuff is shippable around the country. So yeah, if anybody wants to pick something up, I appreciate it a lot.
yes, so I will make sure that information is posted in the description below so you can follow Mason on there.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep. Today is Veterans Day as well, so
Yes,
yes, always important to thank all our servicemen and women out there who have sacrificed something in some form for our country. Active duty, retired, everyone in between does deserve a shout out. So that's something that is important to say today, of all days.
yeah,
As always, thank you all for listening. Mason, thank you again for being on. I do appreciate you taking time out of your day.
absolutely, Edward. I appreciate you.
And with that, that'll be all. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow with more.